So anyway, welcome to what month are we? May. This is May Education Seminar, which is about how to start and grow a business. Next month, I'm actually going to be running how to set goals. So if you're interested in that one, make sure you keep an eye out for registrations when they open. So a little bit about Accountabill. So we are a Tains agent, so we are accountants. We actually won the 2020 Bookkeeper of the Year award for the ICNZB, so that's the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, and we actually won the Zero Bookkeeping Award for 2020 as well, so that was really quite exciting. And we, so we do your financial accounting, we do your bookkeeping, business development. So I do a lot of business consulting. Our specialty is startups and companies in financial difficulty. So that's the space that we sort of play in. But at the same time, you know, the financial recovery, if you know someone that's actually struggling or they're actually not quite sure what to do and they've got debt, send them our way. They don't need to come to us as accountants. I actually consult with a lot of accountants and help them work with their clients. So today, there's quite a few of you. This is an interactive session, so jump in if you've got a question, raise your hand, which you can do on Zoom. And if you don't want to say anything, but you'd like to have a question answered, feel free to actually put it in the chat box, which is just down the bottom. So can you all find the chat function on Zoom? Cool. So today, oh look, someone's actually sent me a message. Today is very much, oh, Kathryn found it. Well done, Kathryn. Today is very much 100% participation. We need you to walk away from this webinar with as much information as you can possibly hope to have. So if we've said something that is a bit weird, make sure that you actually ask the question and get some understanding around it, because occasionally Kathryn and I can jump into our fancy speak, which my children don't understand when I say, can you clean your room? There's no dumb questions, and I can guarantee if you're thinking it, then others will be too. My whole big thing is dream big, like learn information today that you're going to be able to use in the future. Don't sit there and go, well, this is my little box that I'm in now. We actually want you to start developing a really big box so that we can fill that up. So really dream big and have fun. Life is too short. Let's try to enjoy this process. I'm not here to bore you today, so if I am boring you today, please let me know, put it in the chat function, and Kathryn will quite happily do a dance for us to entertain us. You're up for that, eh, Kathryn? No? Oh. So quickly, the one thing that I want you guys to be thinking today is ORBID, above the line, below the line. Has anyone ever come across this before? Yes. No. Oh, cool. Nope. Anyone want to demonstrate it? So pretty much above the line, you've got your ownership, your accountability, responsibility. You are making the decisions and you are taking full ownership and responsibility for those decisions. Below the line, blame, excuse, deny. And I sort of liken this to my teenagers where you know, clean your room, you never asked me to do that. I can't because I've hurt my knee, or I actually asked my sister to actually clean my room and she didn't do it, so it's not my fault. I see a lot of business owners, especially small business owners and startups, who sit below the line because sitting below the line is safe. I can't get that job because my competitor charges more than me or charges less than me. You know, there's all these reasons why you can't do something. So ORBID, the above the line, you're speaking from the I am now going to actually do my market research. I am going to create a website. Below the line, it's you're speaking from the you. So it's very childlike. You're not going to do anything, and it's a safe place to be. Am I making any sense at all?
Yes.
Orbed, you're a victor if you're thinking above the line. You are making a physical choice to go and do something. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make a physical choice to go and start a business, and I'm now going to take responsibility for that. If you're going to fall into below the line, you are very much a victim and you're justifying your behavior. So I'm going to start a business, but I can't because the bank said no, and therefore I just have to wait until something happens. So really challenge yourself when you say something about your business, whether you're starting it up, whether you're, an established business, really think about your answers or what you're telling yourself. Are you below the line or above the line? Because you need to be above the line to be successful. So I'm now going to introduce you to the amazing Kathryn McGarvey. I love working with Kathryn because she actually speaks the truth. She doesn't hold back. So she empowers small business owners to feel confident in their marketing journey. And she actually makes marketing fun and exciting. So the amount of times that I've heard Kathryn talking to clients, and she uncovers so many things like their point of difference and stuff like that, that they could actually go and develop and become successful, is actually really awesome. And she's got huge successes as well as some huge mistakes. And she's actually honest about these lessons that she's learned. So I'm now going to hand it over to Kathryn, and she will take over and do the next part. Just once I get my technology working. And you can go for it, Kathryn.
Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen now. Can you guys see a presentation on there?
Yes.
Great. So thank you for that very kind introduction, Haylee. Haylee often introduces me when we're doing webinars and says something about marketing being fun, which always strikes a wrong note with me because I don't think about it as fun. I think about it as critically important, but if I make it fun, then that's great, but it's surprising. Right, so how to start and grow a business with the marketing angle. Just a quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. I've been doing this a long, long time. I studied back in Wellington in, I think it was 2000. So it has been quite a while. People used to, these days, if you say you do marketing, people think that you do social media. In the old days, people used to think that you did advertising, TV commercials and print commercials. Campaigns were all about sending people letters in the mail to get them to send things rather than emails. And it was so long ago that we only ever used cell phones for messaging because we couldn't afford to make calls unless it was an emergency. So I've got over 20 years marketing experience with some big companies that you can see there, and also some smaller businesses here in Hawke's Bay and in other parts of the world. And I feel like it's given me a really nice balance between being ruthlessly commercially focused, which is what happens to you when you work at companies like Sky in the UK, balancing against the needs of small businesses when, like, I've worked in marketing teams of 50 people and I've been the only person doing the marketing. So there's quite a nice balance there, understanding small business needs. As Haylee alluded to, I've had 20 years of exposure to marketing stuff-ups, many of them my own, but there's lots of lessons that go along with that. I've also had more than 10 years of exposure to managers, and there's probably a reason why I'm now self-employed, and I'm sure they would all agree. So today we're going to cover off marketing in two parts. So first of all, before you get started, is this business going to fly? is it going to make you money and do what you want it to do for you? And secondly, how to attract clients or customers once you have decided it's a viable business. I thought I might start off with my definition of marketing. There are as many definitions of... Yes.
Are we meant to be looking at a purple screen right at this very point in time?
No, I see. No, you're not. You're supposed to be looking at my presentation. Oh, that's very kind. Not to say anything. I've got two screens and I'm obviously sharing the wrong one. So I'm going to stop my share and start it again. Have you been looking at my photo that I took in the south of France of the lavender?
Yes, it was very pretty, but it didn't make sense with what you were saying. So,
right. Okay, there we go. Is that better?
Yep. Do you want to like do your start presentation thingy?
Yes. There we go.
That's good.
Okay. I've just said all that, so I'm going to forward on. We're covering off that. So, definition of marketing. My definition is that marketing is all about helping people decide to choose you, your product, or your service. There are as many definitions of marketing as there are people that do marketing, but that's the one that I think makes most sense. So the biggest mistake that you can make when you're marketing, and I've been doing this for 20 years and I still make it daily, is making assumptions. I used to have a boss when I worked at National Bank. This was probably 21 years ago, when we all in our team were in our late 20s, early 30s, and were terrified at having a mortgage that was $250,000. And our boss used to say, you guys are stuck in a Wellington bubble. The average mortgage is $50,000 from a guy in Levin, which puts a little bit of perspective on our house prices, but also the main message is that for the most part, you're not your target market. So the things that you believe in your head or that you would do if you were in the position of your client, they're assumptions, they're not facts. So making assumptions, if you can, we all do it and it's understandable to do it, but if you can just remember as you're working through and doing marketing, am I making an assumption about this or do I know this for a fact? So the biggest mistake is making assumptions. The golden rule, if you're starting up a new business or thinking of starting up a new business, is it a viable business? You need to validate the market, and to do that, you've got to stop making assumptions and do your research. So the first step is validating the market. So you're looking for insight into the market and what the current market conditions are. So you want to think about things like, are there other businesses offering what you offer? So, it's Yvonne. You know that there are 2 other lactation consultants within Napier. So the fact that there are already people doing that work tells you that there's a viable market there. If there was nobody doing that work, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a viable market. It may mean that it's not a viable market, but it may mean that there's nobody that wants to do it yet. So you've got to tease out, is there demand? And the best way to do that is to ask around and to talk to other people. So if you can establish, is there existing demand for your product? And is there enough existing demand? Say you're thinking you might start a lawn mowing business. In a town like Napier, I'm sure, or wider Hawke's Bay, there must be plenty of people who mow your lawns, and I'm sure there's room for another person. But if you live in a town with 3 streets and 2 guys already mowing the lawns, then possibly they've sewn up the market and there's not any more demand. So you've got to try and figure out, is there enough existing demand for what you want to offer? if nobody else is doing what you've proposed, why is that? It could be that there's absolutely no demand. It could be that somebody's tried and failed. It could be because it's such a brilliant idea that it's way beyond the comprehension of other people and they just haven't even thought about it. But if you do it, there might be a market for it. So don't be put off. I guess what I'm trying to say is don't be put off if there's already people doing what you're doing, but also don't be put off if there's not people doing what you're doing, but just proceed with caution. Would you agree with that, Haylee?
Totally. And I think when you said, talk to people, ask around, your mother and your best friend and your siblings are not going to be probably your best advice, because they're going to tell you that you're great, darling, keep going, it's a lovely idea. They're not going to be honest. So ask people that don't care about you.
I like to say to people like that, ask people who don't care about you, or ask people who secretly would be happy to see you fail. So those friends that aren't really friends, the people that can give you the brutal feedback, even though it might be hard to hear brutal feedback, they're actually doing you a favor because they're not sugarcoating it. So your mum, unless she's one of those really critical people, your mum is not the best person to give you feedback, and nor is your best friend. The best people to give you feedback are the people who would be willing to hand over their credit cards or already spend money on the type of service that you want to offer, because they're the people who have the most skin in the game. They're the ones who are actually going to buy. Oops, sorry, wrong button. Is there a gap in the market that you can fill? So I'd argue for the most part, usually there is a gap in the market, even if there are other people doing what you're offering. Like for me, there are a bunch of people in Hawke's Bay that offer a marketing consultancy or the same sort of marketing services that I do, but I think I don't think of them as competitors, because I think they appeal to very different kind of people that I appeal to. I'm quite happy not to have a particular type of customer because I know I won't do my best work with them. I'm happy to mop up all the middle-aged and older people who are the people quite often that come to me. I feel like I've identified a gap for advice for people like me who are a little bit grey of head and old of tooth, but not past it. So once you've had a wee look around at the market, the next thing, I know I just said they're not competition, but for the purposes of this exercise, we want to look at your competition. Who else is out there in the market? So you want to figure out how competitive is the landscape at the moment, and what ways can you perhaps, if there is high competition, how can you be different and distinctive? So if it's a completely new thing or you're new in town, the best way to find out who your competitors in your space might be are things like the obvious, doing a Google or a Facebook or an Instagram search or whatever your social media platform is of choices, and seeing who's out there and what they're doing. Asking around is the other thing that's absolutely common sense, is ask people that you interact with. You can ask your mum and your best friend if you like at this stage, because they're not going to influence anything by telling you who your competitors are, but just ask the people in your community and that you deal with. If you were wanting somebody to mow your lawns, who would you choose? Lactation consultants are a harder question to ask people, but you never know what you might find. Other resources that you can look at are even things as simple as going onto the yellow pages, looking at the listings in your local chamber of commerce, or if you like, there's an Ahuriri Business Association or Napier Inner City Marketing or Hastings City Marketing. Those types of things will give you an idea of who's out there in business. So the sort of things that you want to look at when you're looking at the competition is, like most of us would start out looking at their website. What sort of quality is their website? What does it say? what can you intuit about what sort of target market they're wanting to serve by the language on their website? What sort of services do they offer? What's their pricing? And if you can get a really good overview of their complete offering, that will help you see perhaps where you should be fitting in the market. You might also want to take a look at their social media activity. I'm sure there's nothing more pleasurable than finding a competitor and seeing they've got a Facebook page that they haven't updated since 2016. That tells you something about how they value communicating with their audience. That's said as somebody who hasn't touched their Facebook page since 2018, but I do have a post on there saying I'm not active on Facebook. When you're looking either at their LinkedIn or their Facebook or their Instagram, or I don't know if many New Zealand businesses are on Twitter, but you want to get a feel for how active they are. What sort of engagement are they getting? You know, are they posting into the void and getting their mum and their best friend liking every single post and nobody else? Or are their feeds really engaging and there's lots of communication and interactivity going on? What sort of things are they talking about? What sort of subject matters? Could this be something that you can take ideas from what they're saying, obviously not stealing the exact words or stealing the exact images, but can you use what they're posting about as not quite inspiration, but as a prompt for something that you could potentially be talking about? Another thing that's really useful to do is look at the Google and Facebook reviews on businesses. If it's somebody with 5 stars or 4.8 stars, then it's really useful to read the comments to see what kind of things people are praising them for. I often tell people that reviews that say, Kathryn's lovely to work with, she's really nice, that's quite pleasant, it's nice to hear, but that's not as impressive as a review that might say, I doubled my income after 5 sessions working with Kathryn, or something with numbers. So if you can dig down into reviews and try and find, outside of the platitudes about people being really nice and approachable and friendly, but if you can see what sort of things they're talking about, it may give an indication of what kind of things are important to the people who are likely to pay you for what it is that you're trying to sell. The other fun thing to do is to look, if they've got a lot of reviews, look at the bad reviews and try and figure out what the business has done to annoy these people so much. And it may be not even necessarily bad things. It may be something that I'm going to time myself in not saying the wrong thing here. I'm going to step aside for a second. I think there's a massive advantage in being repellent to people. If you stand for something, or if you have a strong view about something or strong values, you're going to repel some people, but that's not a bad thing, because the people who aren't repelled are probably going to be even more attracted to your brand or your product. They're probably going to be more enthusiastic about something that Haylee, I'm tying myself in knots here. Can you think of a better way? You know what I'm trying to express.
I am. So if we take into account, like I work with startups and financial difficulty clients. That's not to say I don't take normal clients that have got established businesses and actually do really, really well. But for me, I focus very heavily on those 2 areas of my business. So that what that means is a lot of the time, people with established businesses don't actually come and seek me out, because I am so focused on these areas that are important to me. So I get people coming to me that I actually really want to work with and love. And I'm not so attractive to companies that are not startups and companies in financial difficulty, because that's how I promote myself. Does that make any sense at all? And has that answered your question, Kathryn, or have I just made things even worse?
No, you've prompted me to say I've found what I was trying to find my way to, is that, say, just imagine there was a 1-star review for Accountabill that said, this company is useless for established, boring businesses. Then that's useful to you. That can indicate an opportunity. Either you might want to start up in competition to Haylee, but not really in competition because she's wrapped up startups and you want to do established, boring businesses. So just because somebody gives Haylee a 1-star, there is an opportunity that maybe they would give you a 5-star. Does that make sense?
No one's nodding.
Sorry, I've lost people's faces. I can only see my screen. Okay, let's park that. I might come back to it later. But we go back to the point. Reading people's reviews will give you a really good indication of what people value and what people don't value in your product or service. So the sort of thing that you want to look at when you're looking at your competitors, and I say this so you're observing them only. It's not to say that just because they are doing 5 Facebook posts a week, that's the right thing for you to do, but it's more just as an observation. What kind of marketing are they doing? Are they heavily focused on Facebook? Are they doing a lot of radio advertising? Do they promote themselves using webinars and educational programs, that kind of thing? So just try and get a feel for what sort of marketing they're doing, what social media channels they are using and how actively they are doing it, and also the messaging on their website. And this is a trap that a lot of people fall into when they're starting a business and need to build their own website. If you haven't thought about your messaging carefully, you're making it harder for the people visiting your website to realize that you're the right choice for them. I could do a whole webinar on messaging, so I won't talk too long on that. But when you're reading people's messaging, reading people's website, you know, Haylee talked earlier about above the line. In marketing, we talk about above the fold. And for those of you who remember broadsheet newspapers, anything that was above that fold was the thing that sold the newspaper. It's the same thing on a website. That very first screen that you see when you land on it without scrolling, that's considered above the fold. So does that above the fold information on your competitor's site, and when you come to build your own site, you'll need to make sure that it works on your site too. But does that, the wording and the messaging, when they land on the website, does that make abundantly clear what you do or what you sell, who you're for, so what kind of people are buying, would be buying your product. So you want people to know that, yes, I'm in the right place. You are the right person for me. So like, for example, my website talks about small business help, marketing help for small business owners. I see other sites that say tech solutions. You know, that doesn't really tell me anything. That could be, you know, doing point of sale for dairies to enterprise tech solutions for corporates. So you want to be really clear on your messaging, and you want, when you're doing your competitive analysis, figure out what sort of clients they're trying to attract, or what sort of customers they're trying to attract through their messaging. Okay, so after you've validated the market and looked at your customers, you want to validate customer demand. So this part's quite scary. And this one is really easy to decide you don't want to do it and you're just going to make an assumption based on your own life experiences and knowledge, but you actually need to go out and talk to people. You're trying to figure out, are they going to buy what it is that you're wanting to sell? Now, I know, having been in this situation and having talked to many, many people who are thinking of starting a business, a lot of people are really reluctant to go out and talk to people because they think somebody's going to steal their idea. Now, Haylee, I'll ask you in a second for your views on that, but in my views, yes, it's understandable. You don't want to tell people what you're doing in case they steal your ideas. But I've heard probably 25 fantastic ideas in the last 2 years, and I have not got off my ass to do them because I can't be bothered and it's not what drives me, and there's a lot of work involved. And I think the chances of somebody hearing your idea and stealing it are very, very, very low. But say somebody did hear your idea and decided to steal it, that sucks, but it's also an opportunity because there's still going to be something that sets you apart. And so you just need to exercise your marketing muscles to market your business better or in a different way than somebody stealing your idea. Haylee, do you have any thoughts on actually going out to talking to people and worrying that they're going to steal your idea? Have you seen it happen?
It's actually happened to me. So I've actually gone out. I created a service. I went out, I marketed it, I actually delivered it. Someone else saw what I was doing and they copied my idea and started doing it as well. The reality was they weren't me. They didn't have my passion for the product that I was creating, and therefore they fell over. But what they did do was actually did a whole bunch of marketing and showed people that here's a service and I was delivering it and I was actually really successful at it. So don't be worried about someone stealing your idea. Actually ask people, because 9 times out of 10, when I get a startup, they come in and they're going to sell widgets that are blue and white. And then we go out and they ask all these questions and all that sort of stuff. Turns out the market actually wants widgets that are red and yellow. So these questions can help you define what it is you're doing. One guy that I worked with a few years ago, he had been in business for 4 years. He had spent thousands and thousands of dollars doing websites and all this sort of stuff. He never actually asked anyone about the product he was trying to sell, because he didn't want it to be stolen because it was such an amazing idea. I then put him in touch with people that would be the buyers, and it turned out there wasn't actually a business there. So he'd spent, quite a few years and a lot of money developing a business that no one wanted. So the only way that you're going to know is by asking people what they want.
Yeah. So there's a number of ways you can do that. You can do it in person or you can do it via a survey. I'd heartily endorse talking to people face-to-face or at least one-on-one rather than a survey. Very few people are experts at drafting surveys, and it's really easy to introduce some bias in your questions or inadvertently lead people. One-on-one conversations are much richer because you also get, if you're asking open-ended questions, you get really rich information back rather than, what you've put under A, B, C, or D. So you want to talk to people who are likely to be buying your product or who have bought a similar product or service in the past. So you want to look at things, just the very basic things like demographics, their age, their gender, their location, their profession, their education. You might have a product that appeals to men between 18 and 24, but also appeals to very old people. So just having an understanding, obviously, lactation consultant, yours is much easier to narrow down. But you just want to have a basic understanding of their demographics. What problem does the customer have that gets solved by your product or service? And we'll talk about that in particular in a little bit further on. How do they solve that problem right now? What do they wish was different about what's on the market at the moment? And you can get some really rich information there. What do they like about what's currently on the market? And it's always very telling to ask, if your product or your service was available right now, are they willing to give you your credit card, their credit card number? And you need to be a little bit wary, not just your mum or your best friend, but people might say, yes, I would buy. But actually, when it comes to handing over their cold hard cash, it's not, you can't take for granted that people that have said they'll buy will buy. But as an indication, you know, it's about the best that you can get. If they were going to buy it, how often? Obviously, that depends on your product or service, and that may not be a relevant question. Another really interesting thing to ask is, what would stop them from buying? So what sort of obstacles are there? And that can be good information for you to put in your marketing materials if you want to handle some objections, or FAQs are another good way of handling that, talking around the things that would make them not buy and finding ways to get them through that. And the biggie, how much would they pay? Again, you've got to take it with a grain of salt, but as an indication, you know, if you're putting a product or service in front of them, how much is this go? How much would you pay for that? Gives you an idea of where the market might be sitting. And one that I sometimes ask, because it's really easy to get excited about what's in your own head and think it's a big thing and have infectious enthusiasm, and people want to help, so they say all sorts of nice and encouraging things, but then you find out that your product is very, very low priority. Yep, they like the idea, they might buy it, but actually there's 10 other things that are higher priority. Or you might have stumbled across something that, if it's available on the market, yay, they want to buy it straight away. It's really high priority. So that can be an interesting question to ask as well. So then when you put those three strands together, you should have, that's a very broad overview, but should give you an idea. Have you got a business that's viable and worth pursuing? So Haylee, do you want me to move on to the second part? Okay, so this is once you have decided that you've got a viable business, this is how to, again, a brief overview on how to attract clients or customers. So my golden rule is have a strategy first. Without a plan and a strategy of where you're going, your marketing efforts are likely to be sporadic, incohesive, and ultimately not get you the results that you want. I run workshops on doing marketing strategy, so I can't go into, I run 2-hour workshops, so we don't have the time to do that now. But just as a broader overview of how the process would work, you need to start off with your overall business goals, which Haylee is a genius at and will be running the webinar on next time. I assume that's business goals as well as any other kind. So before anything else, you need to understand your business goals. And from that, you can get your marketing strategy, which then leads to marketing tactics, which are the practical things that you are going to do. And then you get yourself a plan. You execute the marketing tactics and you measure and evaluate for that feeds back into your marketing strategy and business goals. If anybody wants to talk marketing strategy at another time, I'd be more than happy to do it, but we just don't have the time to go into any detail in this webinar. But so just thinking back to wanting to start a new business, my number one rule is it's really important to understand what you're really selling. And most of the time, it's not what you think it is. You need to understand what you're really selling and how to talk to people about it. So this is a famous slide in marketing circles. That guy was a Harvard professor of marketing in the 50s or 60s. And he said, he's quite right, if somebody's buying a drill, it's not actually a drill that they want, it's a hole. So the product or the service that you're selling is most likely not what you think it is. It's something that enables some sort of outcome or transformation. I've got an example here. This is an old example, but it's a good one, so I keep referring to it. If you remember the iPod, so an iPod had storage for 1 gig of MP3s. Apple are quite genius marketers. It's less about it being a gig of MP3s, because who knows what that actually means, but 1,000 songs in your pocket is what they're actually selling, the ability for you to carry around 1,000 songs in your pocket. So what you're really selling is an outcome or a transformation of some kind. And the best way to communicate that is to understand the differences between features, benefits, and outcomes. When you're selling your own product, if you've developed something and you're really proud of it, you want to show it off. But a lot of people, or put it in its best light, and a lot of people do that from their own perspective and make it really boring for the end user. So listing features can be quite useful in a spec document or in a larger sales page. So a feature is a factual statement about your product and service, but it's the benefit that people want to buy. So with the drill, they're not actually buying a drill, and I'd argue they're not buying a hole either. They're buying, maybe they've got a mess of books on the floor and finally want to install a shelf and need the drill for it. So you want to be talking about the outcomes and the benefits rather than the features. So I've got just a quick little slide to help you get your head around that, because I know it can be tricky if you've not come across it before. So say your Benadryl cough mixture. So the features are those things at the top there. It's strawberry flavored, non-drowsy, etc., etc. The benefits of those features are, so the fact that it's strawberry flavored, the benefit is that it tastes so good your kids might take it without fuss. Or the benefit of being non-drowsy is that it won't stop you drying. The way that I like to do it, and people find this an easier way than trying to come up with it from scratch, is if you write a list of what you consider the benefits of your product or service, and then put your cynical marketer's hat on and say, so what? So Benadryl has a decongestant. So what? What does that mean? Who cares? So what? The answer to that is, so you've got no more chafing on your nose from constantly wiping it. So if you can understand how to communicate the benefits and the outcomes rather than the features, then you're putting on a customer hat and making it way more appealing to them. When you think about what you're actually selling, so you want to understand what problem you're solving, what need you're meeting, how you might make your customer's life better. So Yvonne, I'm sorry I keep harking back to you, but you've got a nice, unique product. It's quite easy to think what problem a lactation consultant might be solving, how you're making your customer's life or your mother's life better. Like, that's quite an easy one. It can be trickier depending on your business or your product, but you really, if you can nail this and include this in your website messaging, you're doing better than 85% of other people out there starting a new business. I'm going to jump through this. The second rule is understanding what makes you different or makes you a better choice. And again, knowing how to communicate that. So what makes you so special? You want to understand why someone should choose you. What's your point of difference? What's your unique selling proposition? And I like to, I've got 3 examples there. My office is, upstairs above a Juna eatery, and there's 2 cafes that aren't marked, but within a block, there are 5 places that I can go for coffee. So why is it that there's one that I go to all the time? What makes them different? Or in Napier with our ever baffling 3 supermarkets within 2 blocks of each other. Like I'm a pack and save shopper because I value not spending more than I need to at the supermarket, but I have a lot of friends who are fancy countdown shoppers because they like going to a smaller place that they think is cleaner, quite frankly. But so every one of these things in here has a point of difference. Or if you look at the beauty salons in Taradale, what is it? What's making people choose one of those things over the other? And there's no right answer because your target market is going to be different. The people that go to, for example, Georgia on Tennyson are very different from the people who go to the vegan cafe that's not there on the map, Harpy, because people have different needs. So harking back to what Haylee was saying before, don't worry about putting a flag in the ground saying this is what I stand for, because the vegans might not come to Georgia, but the other people will. Positioning is quite a big thing that a lot of people overlook and don't understand, but can be useful for understanding where you sit in the market. It's very much an internal thing, but I'll show you some examples. When I work with clients, I have 2 sort of templates that I use to come up with a positioning statement. I have 2 templates because sometimes one just doesn't work and the other does. So the first one is for your target audience. Your business is the type of business that lists your point of difference. Because now I know that makes no sense. So I've filled in an example using Powerade. So if you can imagine, Powerade's positioning statement would likely be something like so the target audience is people engaged in sports or intense activities. Powerade, your brand or your business, is the sports drink, that's your type of business, that helps you perform at your highest level because it's the go-to sports drink for sporting pros. Now, the beauty of a positioning statement is, again, it's about planting that flag, but understanding what you stand for and what you want to stand for in other people's view. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm actually going to skip through the next one. Sorry, I think we might have I feel like I'm not explaining positioning very clearly. So if there's any questions, we're nearly done. Ask me at the end. Something that I'd really like you to think about is what your pricing says about your position in the market. And this is called the price quality matrix, with low, medium, and high quality on the left hand, and low, medium, and high price along the bottom. It's a really useful thing to figure out where you sit in this matrix and what that says about you. And a lot of the small businesses that I work with don't want to charge people too much. And usually that's out of either kindness and generosity and givingness, or a lack of confidence in what they're offering. But you've got to be really careful if you're sitting low price and the quality doesn't match, I don't know about you, but if you see something that costs less than you expected, you expect that it's not very high quality. So if you're having a low price, just be careful that you're not undermining your own credibility.
And I think a perfect example there, I know you've probably got one, Kathryn, but I had a client that was selling earrings. It cost us 50 cents to land them in the country. We sold them at $5, but we couldn't sell them at all. And that was a really good markup for us. We couldn't sell them at all, so we increased the price to $20 a pair, and we sold out within a week. So perception is the key, and don't sit there and go, well, I'm going to be better than everyone else because my price is low. Sometimes to have the highest price means that you're better than everyone else. So really consider that option.
Yeah, I'm going to whiz through that as well. The third rule is understand your customer journey and market accordingly. And all I mean by customer journey, or all marketers mean, is how do we take somebody from not being aware of you or your product? So how do we take people from oblivious to handing over their cold hard cash? So there's a couple of, every journey is different, but this is a common one, path to client acquisition. So for service products, what normally happens is they don't know you. Then they get to know you. The next step is they like you. They might develop trust for you. And once they know, like, and trust you, that opens them up to be ready to buy. And ideally, from purchasing, they'll either go on to be repeat customers, refer you on to others, or do a bit of both, be a repeat customer and be referring you. So something that you want to think about is breaking down. So for this first one, for no, what are you going to, what are the best ways to get people from not having ever heard of you or being aware of you to getting them to know you? So that could be social media, that could be you're wearing a branded t-shirt in line at the supermarket and somebody sees it and is intrigued enough. It could be a branded vehicle. It could be paid advertising. It could be a referral. But if you do a brain dump of all the ways that people can go from not being aware of you to aware of you, and see what marketing you can put in place. Are you putting flyers underneath people's window screens at the farmers market, for example, that kind of thing? Then you want to think, how can I go from them knowing me to liking? So that's likely to be, that if they check out your website, do they like the tone of voice? Do they like the way you talk in your social media posts? From like to trust indicators are things like Google reviews, Facebook reviews, testimonials on your website, case studies on your website, referrals or word of mouth. What's going to make them trust you, because that's more likely to get them to buy. So you get the idea. If you think about how you get from each step to the next one and what marketing activities can take place to help people move through that path, or path to purchase. If you've got a retail outlet, it's generally pretty it's simpler in that you're looking to raise awareness, then have people be interested in you, trust you, and buy. And again, if you can sit down and brainstorm all the possible ways that you think you can move people through the stages, that's a good way of getting some ideas about how to market yourself or your product. Rule number 4, make it easy for people to buy. If you've got a website, please have a really easy to find and clear call to action saying buy now or book now for a consultation or call. You'd be amazed at the people that don't do that and must wonder why they're not busier or selling more, but they've not made it easy for people to buy. So you want to be sure that you've nailed how can people buy from you and where can they buy from you? How easy is it for them to buy? If you make me fill in a form that asks for my name and email address, I might fill it in. But if you make me fill in a form that asks my name, my email address, 6 other things, you might have all seen forms like that. You kind of give up because you've made it too hard. You've put a barrier in my way. So make it as easy as possible for people to buy and make it easy to find information about your product. And the last rule, and this is the end of the presentation, is don't wait for perfect. That's probably the golden rule to end things off. Nothing is ever perfect. And and I speak as a non-reformed perfectionist, but I force myself to put out stuff that's not perfect because it's better than not doing it at all. So get out there, do it, especially if you're doing stuff online. I had a client 2 weeks ago who spent an extra hour, well, she spent an extra week making the most minor adjustments to her website because she didn't like the way this was written and this line was wrong. And, that's fair play to her. That's her business, but she could have been live a week earlier and still changed it and it wouldn't have made any difference. So don't sit down waiting for things to be perfect. Get out there, do it, and fix it up as you go.
Awesome. So I know that we're running out of time, so I apologise for those of you that need to run away and do something important. I'm going to steal the screen back from Kathryn.
Yes.
And I'm just going to finish off with the next steps. So, important things to remember when starting a business. Choose your business name. Don't put your name in there. Make it your business name actually sound like what you're doing. So, I hold people accountable. And so therefore, that's what my company name is. When you sort of know what that company name is, then go to the www.business.gov.nz, one check to see if it's actually available. So once you know what that is, then you can choose your business structure. And there is actually a webinar on my website in the education area that covers off in more detail the difference in company, partnership, sole trader, business structures. Write a business plan. So we'll talk a bit more about that shortly. Open bank accounts solely for the business. So no personal transactions to go through these accounts. When I worked at Inland Revenue, I used to find it incredibly enjoyable to be able to go through business accounts, and I learned so much about the individuals because I could see what they were doing, where they were eating, and how much money they spent on groceries. So really make sure that you've got that separation of business and personal. Choose accounting software and get some training. So if you are a brand new startup, you might want to choose to use an Excel spreadsheet, and which I can quite easily give to you, but let's have a conversation around that. So make sure that what you're using is actually good for your type of business. And find a business coach to hold you accountable to your plan, which we can help with that. But, one of the questions I was asked a couple of weeks ago was, at what point does a business qualify for a business coach? As soon as you want a business coach, you can get one. So if you're going to sit in the procrastination zone for a very long period of time, that tells me you need a business coach because you're not going to move forward very quickly. And build strong networks. So they're going to be critical for you in actually developing your business. So company structures, we'll just quickly touch on these. So you've got a sole trader, they're very easy to set up. There's no costs involved and business losses affect your personal income. However, the issues with a sole trader relationship, or structure I should say, is it's more difficult to sell the business. And if something goes wrong, you've got no asset protection. So really weigh up what type of business you're getting into and what risks you've actually got potentially. A partnership, you can split the cost with someone else and you've got someone to help you make business decisions, but it's also very expensive to actually set up a partnership agreement. Don't do a partnership without a partnership agreement. And once again, you're personally liable, and if your partner does something really dumb, then you could actually be liable for the dumb stuff that they do. So really understand that. And then the company structure. You've got limited liability. The ownership can easily be transferred by selling shares or giving them away. However, you do have extra compliance costs. You've also got directors' duties that are governed by legislation. Directors make decisions, shareholders earn the money. So remember that directors make the decisions, shareholders earn the money. And there is that webinar on my website under the free account for you to go and watch. It'll be right down the bottom because it was one of the earlier ones we did. If you're going to set up a company, you do it through the company's office. So you just go on, make an online account. You can register your company name. And then that generally takes a day or two for them to approve you having that name, and then you carry on the process and turn it into a limited liability company. At that point, you'll actually be allocated a New Zealand business number. So the business number is important because that is the number that New Zealand's going to operate by. The ACC number, the IRD number, all that sort of stuff's going to disappear, and everyone's going to be known by their New Zealand business number. If you decide to go with a sole trader, you're not going to be allocated a New Zealand business number. So I'd highly suggest that you apply and get one, because with the way that accounting softwares and things are going, then e-invoicing, so that's when it leaves one accounting software and lands in the other accounting software without having to go via email or anything like that, is all going to be governed by the New Zealand business number. So there's some really cool stuff coming. We just need to make sure that you've got the right ID. If your turnover is going to be over 60K, you must register for GST. But if you don't think you're going to earn over 60K, then you don't need to register for GST as at the time of incorporating your company. And at the same time, if you've got any questions about what you should be doing, give us a shout and we can sort of point you in the right direction. And optionally, you can actually register your your logo as a trademark, or your company name as a trademark. So that's actually quite an effective thing to do. So have a think about that one. And then if you want to, you can actually have a company constitution. If you don't want to use the default rules in the legislation, 9 times out of 10, the default rules are going to be perfectly fine for a small business owner. So if you're unsure what to do, actually ask for help, because that's going to be better for you in the long run. Create a business plan. So I'm sort of rushing through this because I know you're all busy. Create a business plan, keep it on 1 page, no more than 2 pages. A business plan is not a big pile of documents that you put under the kitchen table to make it level. This is a working document that you're constantly working through. No more than 4 main goals. If you have any more than that, you're not going to achieve them, because you will actually fail to start. Cascading 90-day goals. So what that means is that every 90 days, your goals change. So, well, your goal doesn't change, but the actions that you're going to do change every 90 days. If you're not refreshing them every 90 days, then you're going to sit in the procrastination zone for a very long period of time. So really make sure that you've documented what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. No more than 5 KPIs. There's no point in having all these goals and not tracking the success of them. So have a couple of points within your business that you can actually look at and go, yes, I've nailed it. No, I haven't. That's as simple as it is. I've done it, or no, I haven't done it. Keep it visible. Your business plan does not go in a drawer. It does not go in the bathroom. It goes where you're going to be sitting constantly looking at it. It is there to slap you in the face, to actually get you out of that procrastination zone. That's my new favorite place, I think. So really make sure that your business plan is visible, and review it at least quarterly with someone independent, because I can guarantee you, if you don't, you're going to set these goals, life's going to get busy, and in 90 days, you're just going to roll over the same goals, because you'll slip below the line and go, oh yeah, but I've had sick kids, so therefore I've now got another 90 days to achieve this. Does that make sense? And does anyone think that they would just roll over their goals for another 90 days? Yeah, that's what we do. And so when I say a coach, quite often I hear like my tradies go, oh yeah, my wife keeps me in line. No, that's just an argument waiting to happen. So get someone independent to hold you to account. And they don't need to be millions and millions of dollars. Like a small business owner can actually afford a business coach. So a coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear and has you see what you don't want to see, so that you can be who you've always known you can be. So effectively, I piss people off. I tell them stuff they don't want to hear, but at the same time, they become incredibly successful because I don't let them sit in that procrastination zone. Does that make anyone feel uncomfortable?
Sounds terrifying, Haylee.
And that is that, you know, a business coach is not there to terrify you. They are there to actually help you be the best person that you could possibly be. A good business is one that gives you the time and the money to be able to live the lifestyle you want. I have not come across a business owner yet that has all those three things: the time, the money, and the lifestyle. So we aim to actually work with you to actually get you what you actually want. And 9 times out of 10, my business owners don't even know what the lifestyle is that they're aiming for. Would any of you know what that lifestyle looks like? No. So number 1, in your business plan, make sure you've included what that lifestyle is going to look like. So build strong networks. So consider the lifetime value of a client. We're not just going in for a quick one-off sale. We're actually there to actually build a relationship and get them to be their ongoing repeat business that then refers, like Kathryn said. So we may need to take a little bit longer to establish that relationship to then actually get the money we want at the other end. Identify complementary businesses. So have a look around and actually see who's actually in your space that you work in. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to work side by side or learn from each other. You know, Kathryn is an amazing part of my networks. We do totally different things, but we both support business owners. So therefore we're complementary. You could probably find many of those as well. Give more referrals than you seek in return. There is nothing worse going up to someone you're trying to build a relationship with, going, hey, can I have all your clients? Because I'm now going to do this and I think my services match yours. Actually go to people and build that relationship first and say, hey, I've got this person, could I actually refer them through to you? And then you're going to start building that trust, that relationship grows, and then you're going to end up with referrals going both ways. Does that make any sense? Find out where your target market hangs out. And I always say to my client, you know, create that avatar. I think Kathryn, you actually gave me this idea in the beginning. Create that avatar about where your people are. What do they look like? Actually form a real picture in your mind that you are working with Peter, who's the electrician that lives in Lower Hutt, and he goes down to the Hound and Bull every Saturday night and has drinks with his wife while they get a babysitter in. then you can start imagining who you're actually working with. So if you can then start finding those networks that are in the same places that your target market is, then you can actually start building your business. And get involved with not-for-profits. There's a lot of people involved with not-for-profits that actually are there because they love doing what they're doing, but they actually have other businesses. So you don't know, a not-for-profit may be a doorway into getting to where you actually want to be. So we've sort of rushed through that, but what I want you to do today is you've got to get started now. If you're going to start a business, if you're going to actually grow the business that you've currently got, nothing is going to happen if you do nothing. So write down 3 actions or projects that are going to add value to your business today. And a problem is an opportunity to create a project. So if there is a problem that you've got, or that if you see someone has got that problem, that's a project that you can then create to then actually start developing your business. And doing nothing is not an option, because if you do nothing, you're going to not have anything. So my parting thought for the day, and I think this is actually really quite good fitting for this one, even if you are on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. So now we've thrown a whole bunch at you today. Do any of you have any questions? Is there anything that you would like to ask, say? You know, it'd be good to know what's the value that you've actually gotten out of today's session. Who's going to volunteer that? Yvonne.
Yes. It's incredibly valuable to me, giving me the strategies, like an awareness of what to put in a website. I haven't got a website as yet, but it's good to learn and hear about, you know, what people want to read from their perspective, not what you think they need to read. Yeah, it's very valuable. I'll be chewing over all these things. I definitely agree with your mentor. I have a friend that rings me every Friday and says, right, what have you achieved this week? So, and last week it wasn't too good. So this week I'm meeting with other providers to see if they can see what are the barriers, why people don't come, what is holding them back, and in most cases, unfortunately, is the price of the service. Ethically, I've got to be careful as not to alienate myself from my other colleagues in the business by literally undercutting them.
I think possibly, Yvonne, it would be worthwhile reaching out to Kathryn and actually having a chat with her and seeing whether she's able to help you with that whole market research side, because it sounds like there's probably a lot of support that you could benefit from there. Anyone else got anything of value that they've really gotten out of today?
I like you telling us that a business plan should only be 1 to 2 pages. A lot of stuff I read online and researched, it's all, 4 pages plus, and it's overly complex. But I thought that 1 or 2 pages was more appropriate, because if you're keeping it short and simple and keeping it achievable, which is the biggest thing, you're going to set yourself up for success, and keeping it visible too, because it holds you accountable. If you see it, don't write it down and put it away somewhere, because how are you going to keep yourself in check?
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. Focus on who your target market is, why you're doing it. Actually go back to Kathryn. So this video is going to be up on the website in the members only area. Go back and have a look at the, I was going to say positioning statement that Kathryn talked about. That's the type of stuff that you're going to want in your business plan. So yeah, so there's heaps to actually starting a business. The key thing is you can't do it alone. I think, you know, there's a lot of people that sit there and go, you know, number 8 Kiwi wire, that's the Kiwi way, we can do this on our own. We don't all know everything. I know what I'm good at. Kathryn knows what she's good at. You guys know what you're good at, and I probably wouldn't even attempt to do what you guys want to do. So it's about that network. It's about forming that relationship with people that can actually help you succeed. So is there any other questions, or you want to say anything before we go?
Sorry, can I ask a question about business mentors?
Totally.
Well, I'm mainly struggling with a lot of other things with pricing my products correctly. And I'm just wondering, would the business mentor be the right person to ask for help or guide me to the right direction to who to ask?
So on my members only area, there is a webinar that I ran last year about pricing, and that taught you how to actually create your pricing for your business to make sure that you're making money. Your business coach will, so there's a difference between a business coach and New Zealand business mentors. So New Zealand business mentors, you pay a fee, and I think it's $300 something, Kathryn. And then that gives you someone for a year, and they're there to support you and help guide your thoughts. I do it under that scheme, but I only have one client a year. So, and it's, you know, it's 1 hour a month, and it's up to you. You get out what you put in. Whereas what I'm talking about is the actual business coaching, which is very much, let's nail this, let's do this. It's going to hold you to account. It's going to be helping you uncover why you're even doing what you're doing, and really driving you. So everyone has a down day, and so your business coach would be the one that puts the boot in and gets you moving again. And I think most of my clients do fear my boot. But they enjoy it, don't they? Please say yes, Karen.
Yeah, love it.
So you know, it's about deciding what you want to do. Your business plan is about your lifestyle. Is it what does that look like? Because once we know what your lifestyle looks like, then we can actually create the business to actually give you that lifestyle. And then once we've actually got that and we've got those goals in place, i.e. I'm going to go to Wellington every 3 weeks to have a weekend and a massage, and I want to go and eat out at Te Puke every 6 months, then they're the goals that we set in the business, and then that's what we're doing. And then Kathryn comes along and she does this amazing marketing strategy, which then actually puts everything in place and makes what we want possible. So the business plan comes first, and then Kathryn's marketing strategy comes second, because you know what you're trying to achieve, you know what you're trying to say, and then she can help you put the words around it. Would you agree, Kathryn?
Yes, and what I also wanted to say is that marketing strategy the words marketing strategy can sound intimidating and scary, but really all it is putting some constraints in place and saying, you know, if you want to go to Wellington, that's going to turn into a terrible analogy. It's about making your path really clear. So if an opportunity comes up, you've got a strategy in place. You can look at the opportunity and say, yes, that's getting me where I want to go according to my strategy, so I'll take advantage. Or no, because that's against the strategy. And a lot of my clients find that the clarity comes from knowing what they shouldn't be doing as much as what they should be doing. I don't think I've made that clear. I
think at the end of the day, it's you know, to start a business, do what you love. If you're passionate about it, it's never going to feel like work. When you know what that problem is, that you're now going to fill the gap and people actually want to buy from you because you've actually done your market research and you've asked people other than your mum and your best friend and your sister, and you've got all that sorted, and then we go down the road and we've got a business plan, we know what you're trying to achieve, we can then move forward and start really ramping up your business. So I always say that if you actually get the walls built on a house, or if you get the foundations right first, build up some strong walls, then we can build whatever we like on top of it. So what you're doing at the moment is building that foundation, the business plan, your marketing strategy, all that sort of stuff, that becomes your walls, and then we can actually go forward and grow a very successful business. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
So this video is going to be available on the website, so if you want to go back and rewatch it, you can. I always recommend watching it on 1.5 speed, because we don't sound like chickmunks, but you actually get through the content much faster. And, you know, I will, for those of you that have actually requested a catch up to talk about your business idea, I'll be in touch. And if you've asked to go on to Kathryn's notes on marketing, she'll then start adding you to her newsletter, which is actually quite interesting. So I actually enjoy reading those. If you're ready for the marketing strategy, I highly recommend reaching out to Kathryn. She's actually really nice. So she will look after you incredibly well, and I've got no doubts about that one. But if there's anything that we can do to help you, by all means, sing out. Creating a business can be quite daunting, can be incredibly overwhelming. So, you know, right back to the rules of the game, let's have fun. So if you're not having fun, you're doing it the wrong way, get in touch.
Thank you, Haylee.
Awesome. Have a good afternoon. Sorry for delay, taking too long. Catch you later.
Thank you. Thank you, Haylee and Kathryn.
Thank you.